So we'll do the official roll call.
Tony Roos,
Here.
Mark Carlton,
Here.
John Ehrlich, Sarah Sand, Neil Klein,
Here.
Casper,
Here.
Roger Kuhlman,
Here.
Leslie Woodruff,
Here.
Jeff Greider,
Present.
Robert Sherry.
Here.
All right, if you could stand and find a flag within your viewpoint somewhere and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Won't do a shorts check either. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can't wait till we can do that in person and completely be off pace from each other. All right, public comments. So I think everybody that's here was on the agenda for the night, right?
Hold on, we do have a Nancy Laughlin who's here, who is joining us. Would you like me to promote her up?
Sure. Hello, Nancy, can you hear us?
There, now you can hear me.
There we go, we can see you too now.
Yeah, hi.
We're at the public comment period. If you have, have some issue you'd like to discuss with Traffic Safety Commission?
No, I saw the agenda for tonight and I saw that there was something on there to discuss the intersection of Meridian Street and Sheridan Streets. And my family owns 3 buildings on Meridian, 207, 211, and 215 North Meridian. And so I'm very concerned about that intersection, and that's why I'm here, but mostly I'm here to listen.
Fantastic, thank you for joining us. All right, and Karin, there's 2 folks who have called in, a 301 and a 429.
I'm trying to figure out how to
One
get
just got
them
promoted up.
to where they can promote up. Can't seem to make that happen with the phone call. Because I can remove them, but I can't do anything else, it appears.
Fantastic. So the 503 and then ending in 311.
Yeah, I promoted them up.
Okay. Who might that be?
I've asked them to unmute. Oh, that's Kelly. Okay, that's Kelly. And then hold on, here comes Dorothy. We're gonna vote Dorothy up. And then I still have one phone call, and I don't know who that is.
Is that the 720 number or the
Yep.
503 number?
It's the 720 number.
Okay. Well, they're listening. If they want to come in, I think they can chat with you, right? If they want to.
Yep, there. Am I through now? This is
You
Dorothy.
are. Hi, Dorothy.
I'm sorry, my computer decided to lock up at about 5 minutes till, and I had to come in through your public one. I couldn't even get to my email to get your link anymore.
It happens. It happens.
The good news is you found us. Thanks, Dorothy.
Well, Jenna had told me that she figured out how to get to it because she wanted to listen in too. And so it's like, oh yeah, I can go out on the outside. So yes, I am here.
Perfect. All right. Consent calendar. We have the minutes from our January meeting. I trust everybody read them.
I did notice a typo, just a misspelling of a word. I don't know if it's important to call that out now or just talk to Karin about it and have it fixed.
You can just tell me about it later.
Good. I'll shoot you an email.
All right. Any other comments?
Tony, I move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
That was Leslie moving, and is there a second?
I'll second it. Roger?
Roger, seconds. All in favor? Raise your right paw. Opposed, left paw. All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, we have a couple presentations tonight from both from ODOT. And I don't know who wants to go first. Andrew's here to talk about phase 2 of the bypass, and Dorothy is here to talk about intersection safety. She's the ODOT Region 2 traffic engineer. Dorothy and Andrew, you guys want to flip a coin?
Yeah, I don't care which one goes first, whatever your guys' preference is. I think ours will probably be longer, but perhaps not. And there definitely will be a lot of questions, I would think, around my presentation. Dorothy, you know how long your presentation will be? Maybe if it's shorter, we do yours first.
We can go ahead and do mine first. That works.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so Dorothy, you're up then.
Okay, let's see. Tony, do you have it to where I actually have a PowerPoint that just has some of my talking points on it? Do you want to allow me to share my screen?
Karna, is Dorothy able to do that?
I just made her a co-host,
Very
so
nice.
she should be able to then share her screen.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
And then I'll do the same thing with Kelly and Andrew on the next one.
Okay. So what I'm here for is Tony asked me to come, that there's 3 specific intersections that you guys wanted to discuss or talk about. So it's 219 at Everest Street, 219, which is College Street up at Sheridan, and then 240, which is Main Street at Illinois, I guess is the best way to call that one out. So I'll do them one at a time. So first in Everest, basically, you know, it's the 4-legged intersection. Everest is stop controlled. The highway itself is 3 lanes across. It's got the bike lane, so it's 54 feet wide. Posted speed of 35. It's got about 11,380 T. Currently, right now, it's got the wigwag style pedestrian activated system on the west leg. The concerns that I know that we hear about is that the intersection often gets queues from 99 all the way back from the Villa signal and the side street queues. Now, I don't know if there's other things in particular for that particular intersection before I go on and start talking about the crash stuff. So is there other concerns, or do I got it kind of the intersection in a good nutshell for you guys?
I think one of the big issues that I know I have with the intersection is the visibility of the wigwag signs.
Okay.
They often get hidden by all the sign clutter and utility clutter leading up to it. And you really can't see the pedestrian that's trying to cross there until it's really too late.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay.
Hopefully that's not just a Tony issue.
So, okay, so, yeah, oh, and the other thing, like I said, is so where you get lots of complaints about the queues here, because now that 2nd Street is cut off over here, you know, this part of the neighborhood is complaining about they can't ever get out, even though they do have another way out over here. So it's this particular one. We've gotten a little bit of complaints about trying to get over here to the grocery outlet. So just wanted to talk about, just put this map up to where it's kind of, this is really the intersection I was trying to focus on per se. I'm going to dig a little bit in the crash history, just try and figure out what is actually going on here. So SPIS, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, is our safety priority indexing system. We run it once a year using the last 3 years worth of crash data. We rank all the segments on the state highway system, and we take a look at the top 10 to 15% to see if there's things that we can do. So this particular section, which is from mile point 20.71 to 20.82, and the 20.71 is actually about just south of Villa. So it actually does take that corner where it comes down off of Villa and then through this particular intersection. So it was in 2017, it was a top 5%, which means it was in, there's only 5% worse than that. But as you can see, it's actually kind of going down as we get our most recent one in 2019. It's dropped down, that it's only in the top 15% instead of the top 5. Looking at the crashes themselves, there were 28 crashes in that particular 1/10 of a mile section. 2 of them being severe. One of them was an eastbound rear end and another one was a turning. 4 of them were on the Villa section, but 24 of those crashes were actually at Everest. There was 1 pedestrian crash. It was a moderate, minor to moderate injury C back in 2015. And there was a 1 bike accident in 2017. And then both were at the enhanced crossing. And then there also was 1 pedestrian crossing not at the enhanced crossing, back towards Villa a little bit. Most crashes have the minor street movement proceeding after stopping. So they come up and stop and either try going across the intersection or try turning in front of traffic that's already there. That's why that congestion is a really big issue. When we looked at all the different styles about it, there isn't anything in particular like time of day, a particular day of the week, a particular condition, the crash type other than its angle and turning crashes. Nothing particularly driver characteristic. Sometimes we'll get something it's older drivers or young teenage drivers, which is a little bit more, we'll see that over on our other particular intersections. So yeah, there's some concerns here with it. Tony, I think the biggest problem is because the intersection is so wide and there's no island there is why those the activated signs are pretty far back off of it. Those went in before we were doing a lot of the RRFBs. That's why it's the old wigwag style. So, we're kind of at that point about, I know that a lot of people always ask about having a traffic signal there. It does not meet warrants, and that's one of the conditions for even consideration on the state highway system. There's, I hope you guys are familiar with the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. It's a national manual that lays out signal warrants. There's 9 of them. And this intersection was last evaluated in January of 2020 using an October 2019 count, that was about a year and a half after the bypass was open. So we actually were getting traffic how it had relatively regulated out before the pandemic. Oh, it's not the next 2 slides. I moved that one. But of the 9 MUTC warrants, there's 5 of them that do not apply. There are 4 that would apply in this particular condition. 4 of them are not met. And here are the different ones. The first one is the 8-hour. You have to have certain volumes for 8 hours during the day. The 4-hour one is the same thing, different volumes. It's that relationship about how the 2 intersections work together. The pedestrian volume is not high enough in this particular case. That really is for a much more urban downtown segment than at this particular location. And then the crash experience. And the crash experience is, there's 3 parts of the crash experience. One of them is you have to have 5 crashes within a 12-month period that are of a type that can be remedied with the installation of a traffic signal. Along with it, you've tried other measures. And so there's 3 conditions on that particular one. The January analysis went through and showed that none of the conditions for the warrants were met. So, so basically we were trying to think of what else might be able to be done. I don't think that we really want to go through and pursue much in the way of movement restrictions, rerouting traffic away from it. that is one thing when you start having a lot of cross movement type traffic that you can do, but with the limited access in and out of the neighborhood, I'm not sure that's something that you really want to pursue. So I think one of the things that we could look at is maybe getting the wigwag upgraded to a full RRFB. My one line here about it may need other features. The State Traffic Roadway Engineer's Office may ask for other things such as a median island because of the width of it. It'll have to have proper illumination of the intersection. So it's not just something that we can automatically easily change it out. It would be a good solution, but it's not just something that can be quickly done. So I guess that's probably about the best we can do. I'm not sure how much the sign clutter that you go through there, an awful lot of that is private businesses and it's off the state right away, which we can't control per se. Have a discussion. I don't know, do you guys have any other ideas based on the information that I could dig out here for you? I mean, it's a straight flat segment. And so there's nothing in the way of curves. There really isn't any landscaping per se, blocking the signs or the visibility of the intersection. So
Dorothy, this is Doug. Per our agreement with ODOT, is there another evaluation that's going to be done in looking at that intersection? Looking at traffic counts, see if warrants are met or not?
The counts were not growing enough. We had looked at it back in like 17 and the volumes really weren't growing enough. I mean, it's like on the warrants or whatever, it's not even necessarily close. Like the 8-hour warrants, it's only even like 4 hours. The 4-hour warrant is only meeting like 1. So, I mean, for us, it doesn't make sense for us to keep counting it every year or two when we're not even necessarily getting close. I mean, it can be done, but it's an expense that it probably isn't going to trigger a signal because I don't think anything has changed enough that would really generate a lot more traffic through there.
Yeah, my question kind of ends up being to, per the agreement the city has with ODOT, what kind of obligations does ODOT have to do those analysis or not? And that's something we can talk about offline.
So, sure.
Tony,
I have a really basic question. I don't know what an RRFB is.
You know the crossing at Hallworth and Villa that they just put in a couple years ago? That's got the rectangular bar that's a high frequency flash.
That's more of a strobe type flasher.
Oh, okay.
So those have a tendency to be a little bit more visible because they're a little bit different without just being the yellow flashing ball.
Got it. Okay.
But like I said, that's what we installed now for pedestrian activated. But at the time when this one went in, we did the wigwag because it was before the RFB was there.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Tony, I don't know if you can see that Mark Carlton has his hand up.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Mark.
I'll go back even. What's a wigwag?
Okay, the wigwag is in the current configuration. You have the pedestrian sign and you have a yellow ball indicator above and below that it flashes alternately. So like the top one will flash, then the bottom one will flash, top one will flash and bottom one will flash when the pedestrian activates the button.
I had to ask my lead traffic engineer exactly that same question a couple of years ago, Mark, and I work in this industry.
So that's the basic walk, don't walk sign?
No, it's actually just a 12-inch yellow ball that's above yellow bulb above the sign and a 12-inch below the sign, and they just alternate flashing one at a time.
Oh, okay. So it's just saying crosswalk here.
I'm Dorothy. I'm going to share my screen. If you,
Okay.
Oh no, I guess I got disabled.
Okay. So,
I'll Google it after the meeting. Thanks.
okay. So like I said, I mean, unless you really want to start addressing the congestion issues through here, I think probably to really make it more visible from a pedestrian standpoint would be to consider the RFB and what may need to happen. Like I said, that because of the 54 foot of distance across, because of the center lane, there may be a desire from the State Traffic Roadway engineer's office to put a pedestrian island, which will make some of the turning movements more difficult because you'll have to turn from the travel lane instead of the turn lane. So I just wanted to warn you on that particular part. I'm not sure with 54 foot of width, whether they will go with just RRFB, even though it is a, you know, it's in a 25-mile-an-hour section. So it's kind of in
Tony?
that gray area.
Yeah, Neil,
Tony,
go ahead.
has there been any consideration with the Villa Road being such a difficult intersection about putting some stop signs on 219 going east-westbound that might slow down traffic at the Everest intersection also for pedestrians, make it a little bit safer for pedestrians if we slow down the traffic with a stop sign at Villa and 219? Because I use that intersection quite a bit, and it seems like people come 99W, hit 219 and start accelerating as they're going by Grocery Express and past Villa. And then traffic coming westbound is coming around the airport at a higher rate of speed past Les Schwab, and starts kind of slowing down, but they're still going at a considerable rate of speed. And if we put in a stop sign for the through traffic at Villa and 219 going eastbound, it might possibly slow down. I think the reason we're seeing lesser numbers there over the past few years is because of the bypass, and people probably coming up from St. Paul over the river are taking the bypass out towards Dayton and the west end, opposed to going through the city of Newberg like they used to have to.
Which was the intent of the bypass, thankfully.
No, I agree. I mean, what triggered the pedestrian signal there was a fatal auto versus pedestrian one night. It just happened to coincide with a traffic safety commission meeting that we had. Sergeant Weaver from police department giving a speech on, he got called out because of the fatal accident there. And that's what triggered the wigwag lights to be put in at that time.
One thing I will say, introducing a stop sign, particularly for the eastbound traffic at Villa is, would only help the one direction, because to do westbound on the approaching, it wouldn't do anything because you're already past the intersection, and probably would be violated a lot because that's such a heavy right turn.
It would be, I'm suggesting it for the straight through on the inside lane. That's what's confusing at Villa and 219 is that you can go, most traffic turns right, but then you get that one guy who's on the inside lane who wants to go straight into Grocery Express or into the other entrance into the residential section. Since a majority of the people don't signal for the right-hand turn, it's hard to tell who's going to go straight and who isn't. So if we did for that inside lane going westbound on 219, if that stopped traffic a little bit more with the volume of traffic and maybe backed it up a couple of 3 or 4 cars at times, especially during the heavier periods of time where there's probably a higher chance of pedestrian traffic also, it might slow people down if they see cars stopped in front of them up there. Right now, people take the right-hand turn and they'll slow down for that, but there's no reason to stop or anything.
Correct, but it would be very difficult to stop just the inside lane unless we put an island or something in.
Okay.
So.
All right, food for thought.
And the thing, that was the other reason why I went looking at the crashes, that the Villa intersection really doesn't seem to have a crash problem. So I think it really is a perception on that particular one. I do understand the bit about the speed for traffic that's come off of 99 onto 219. So yeah, I understand that particular one. But like I said, that's not particularly a high crash location, so.
I was just wondering if it might help our situation at Everest in 219.
We have had other requests for a crossing mid-block between 99 and Villa on 219 as well, for people to access the grocery outlet. but there appears to be a missing sidewalk gap between Villa heading, or from Everest across Villa, about 400, 500 feet of sidewalk that's missing.
Is that on the
That-
grocery outlet portion?
Yeah. And if that was filled in, maybe a better crossing location would be the west side of the Villa intersection.
Well, it depends, because I think, don't you have a lot of pedestrian traffic that's coming up Everest that just wants to cross Everest and keep going north? That you would not have them going out of direction all the way down to grocery outlet in order to come back.
I don't know where they're going to, if they're walking from Everest to get up to George Fox, or if they're walking over to get to the Ace Hardware and La Sierra, or the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, so like I said, without actually following pedestrians, it's hard to say where they go, but you know, that whole area between 219 and 99 there on Everett, you know, that and or if they're just trying to get to that particular one to get to the Villa signal on the east side of the intersection to continue and go north on Villa. I don't know. So those are some things we can keep looking at though, Doug, if you want.
It's one of those we consistently hear from the residents who live south of 219 and the off of Everest and Church and all of those areas. They're really landlocked. I mean, you get to go a ride out on 2nd on 219 and go down to Springbrook and go around, or you use Everest. So we're constantly hearing from the residents about just safety concerns at the Everest 219 intersection and what can be done. They feel very isolated.
Right. So. Okay. Well, like I said, we can have some more conversations about that, Doug, then if you want. Offline after this. So should we go on to the next intersection?
Traffic safety, any other questions on this intersection? Seeing no hands or violent objections, let's go to the next one, Dorothy.
Okay.
Well, we do have some chat. Let's see what's in the chat.
Okay.
Andrew.
That's just the three Andrews working out the audio. We all have the same invite, so they were all Andrews.
Okay.
Got separate invites to figure that out. Thanks, though.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay, so the second intersection to talk about was 219 at Sheridan. So that's College, like 1 block north of 99. It's the four-legged intersection, Sheridan stop controlled. It's got the part-time restriction on the west leg. So for eastbound traffic, that's done with just a sign that says right turn only from 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. This particular part of the highway is only a 2-lane cross section. There's no parking. It's only like 24, 25 feet wide. Posted speed of 25. It's got about 7,100 cars. This one, typically in the afternoon, during peak periods, there is the queue from the signal, and it starts building the side street queues. The thing that I thought was really pretty interesting is when I looked at the crash information, 17 of the 18 crashes at Sheridan were that eastbound move. Many of them were still happening at the 3 to 6 p.m. So the sign there is not doing a whole lot of good. They are still trying to go through. There's an awful lot of angle and turning. Basically, they're getting tagged by cars when they're turning through the queues or trying to move through the queues. And I also went and pulled up at Sherman, which is the next street to the north, had 6 out of 10 were also that same eastbound movement. So it are vehicles going like towards the college. There is a higher than normal percentage of young drivers, 19 to 24, that are in those crashes. So that kind of implies it is the college kids trying to get to the college. Now, luckily on this particular one, there's no fatal or severe injury. You know, they're mostly property damage only, or, you know, minor injury, possible or minor injury. The intersection doesn't meet signal warrants. The SPIS, if you take a look and see, it's been on that 10 to 15% the last 3 years. And that's just basically based on the number of crashes, not basically on the severity of the crashes. So we are talking about this intersection right here. One thing that I know I've talked with Karin about in the past is maybe doing something to change the enforcement of that movement restriction. Putting like some type of a physical barrier, like a traffic separator to address the crashes. It would cause traffic to reroute to either down to 99W or up to Sherman, but at least it would get it out of the queues, or at least a majority of the queues. That's probably about the best way I can say for trying to address what the reported crashes are there. Have a little bit of discussion. Am I missing anything that's actually going on there that also needs to be considered?
No, Dorothy, that's what I've heard from people, is that people aren't, basically they aren't following the posted sign there. And obviously enforcement in that location would be challenging. So I think, really to address the issue, we're probably going to have to start to look at some kind of physical barriers.
Right, and a traffic separator would be, the kind of like the snake ones that we do, it's only a couple foot wide. It's not very tall. We could put the brake in it so that pedestrians have an accessible, ADA accessible route through it and everything, but it would just try and help reinforce the fact of don't try and cross the street or turn left here, please, people.
The downside of that is the garbage collection and emergency access.
Correct. Well, garbage, I'm not sure how much garbage would be impacted.
Yeah, I think garbage would just end up rerouting themselves, and I'm not sure. Neil might have a better feel for that, but I'm not sure people would be, or the TVFNR would be coming up and then trying to, go across College on
Sheridan.
I would hope that if they really needed to get there, that they would have lights and sirens going, and that people would respect that, and it wouldn't be that much of a problem. I think one of the bigger challenges at that intersection, something we talked about years ago when we put the no left turn sign up for those hours, was because of the traffic coming off of 99W during a right turn off of 99W onto College, and it was so close to that intersection that was part of the problem. So I can see that as being a possible consideration, but I think we would have probably heard something from TVFNR if they were having issues with that. And I don't think it's a major thoroughfare for them. It would be a rare occurrence, I believe.
So maybe this is one that we need to work together and see what it would actually take to get like the separator put in. Like I said, we have to do a little bit of looking. I didn't look that close of private driveways that might be in, that would have to be considered when you're starting to do the length of the traffic separator to make sure that you don't have people doing the wrong way driving in a lane. So
Question, aren't some of those physical barriers also able to be driven over by emergency vehicles?
It depends on how they're designed. Yeah. This particular one, I would be a little concerned. I'd really want to talk to the emergency vehicles if they really need it. Just because with this being a college town and the kids would just as likely keep driving over it as well in their cars. So it's a consideration that we can see whether we need that particular balance or not, if that really is a route that they need it.
Sure. These days might be fun for one of the adjacent residents to put up a camera like that 11'8" bridge. Have you ever seen that one before?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The one that keeps taking the tops off of trailers. Yeah, I've seen it numerous times.
So something we talked about years ago when we put that sign up was possibly putting up a barrier at the west end of Sheridan, or excuse me, the west side of Sheridan at College. So basically it would shut down traffic. I'm not proposing it, but if we're talking about putting traffic barriers up or something in the road that would prevent people from going through, would it possibly, I'm just concerned because that is already such a narrow road and we've got some pretty large traffic, trucks and such that go through there. I'm just wondering if it might be a better idea to shut off the entrance where we're having this problem at, instead of putting something up in the middle that causes possibly a traffic hazard.
That is a possibility, Neil, that we could look at doing. However, that has a bigger impact on the locals there on the east side of College, because then for any of those, they have to go back and around and come back, and then how do you get a turnaround? Yeah, there's a lot of those types of issues on that when you start trying
Oh,
to
yeah,
block them
and
off.
that's what we discussed years ago, and I think we actually had some public input, and it wasn't really looked upon very totally favorably, but there were some people, as I remember, who were tired of the, backups of 3 or 4 cars in front of their residence trying to get out because they're trying to get across, or one person's trying to get across and everything. So I'm not proposing that we go forward with it, but if it is something that we're willing to look at, it might be good to get some citizen input from the people who live right in that area, see if they're willing to give up that access to be able and have to go up to Sherman Street or use something else, 99W, if they need to, in order to do that. Just an idea right now.
Yeah.
I think to install any sort of a median in College would require widening of the road and eating up some of that planter strip that's there. There's a really wide 8 to 10 foot wide planter for the curbs that they'd get into. So they'd kick those curbs on either side back, or east and west, to make room for the median.
And that very well could be, with it only being, like I said, that 24 or 25 foot. But we may or may not need to, because with the bud, and this is in a more residential downtown, we might get away with some slightly narrower lanes that we might be able to sneak it in. That's why there would be that trade-off. I think, Doug, we would need to put together some considerations for it, and maybe, take it out to the public and see, well, it's either A or B, but we do need to start addressing the crash problem. And the B would be, do we shut off one of the streets? And I think it would be not only the locals, the College would also have to weigh in onto it, because if I remember right, doesn't Sheridan feed into one of their parking lots?
Yes, it does. I mean, you're basically looking at the whole area
Right.
north of Hancock up to the rail line over to the College would need to be involved in those discussions.
Right.
Start to change that pattern. And if you somehow think that you close off Sheridan, then you're moving the issue north to Sherman.
Right.
And if you would do that, then you're moving it north to Franklin, then you're moving it north to Vermilion until you all the way get up, because some people may say, we'll just have right-hand turns, only getting onto College Street. So that just puts you in an out of direction travel, puts more traffic through the existing residential streets. And then those neighbors get upset because now there's more cars.
Right.
But we do have a large College contingent with the homes that are rented there. And as we know, college kids, instead of walking the 2 blocks to go to school, they want to get in their car and drive to the parking lot.
Yep.
To get to school. And so that's where it brings a bigger community conversation about how you address
that access onto College Street going north and south in those cross movements and or turning movements.
Right. So, okay, well, I think that's probably about the direction to go. Does anybody else on the committee have anything else about this particular intersection that needs to be considered? I think we kind of got one or two things that we can look at here and figure out what it would take and find out how much it would actually cost to do and what the steps would need to be.
Dorothy, is there any timeline for this section of College to be repaved? Because it is falling apart. And if you're going to repave it, it'd be nice to do this fix at the same time.
I don't happen to know offhand what the criteria, when it falls, where it falls on the preservation list. The other thing though is if we are going to have to knock move curb lines back and everything, that might be being done whenever we go through and do an ADA project to go and collect all our ramps, because we'd have to be messing around with curbs anyway at that point. So that may be a time to also take a look at it. I don't know where that portion of 219 is on any of the ADA project lists right now either.
Well, I think the other consideration in that, Dorothy, is we continue to have more development up on the north end of town. There's going to come a point in time between the railroad tracks and Hancock is when does College need to be widened out?
Right. So, but that, I don't know, I know we're on a timeline for our ADA compliance about getting curb ramps built up. So that may be well before the rest of your stuff develops out to the north. So. Okay.
All right. Any other questions on the Sheridan intersection or that area down there? All right. Now the funky 4-way 5-leg intersection, whatever that thing is.
Well, technically at the highway, it's a 3-leg. It's just you have the other intersection like 50 feet away from it. So it's a 3-legged intersection on the corner. The side streets stop controlled. And the side street also has all stop controlled, which I think is probably one of the things that help because with everybody stop and go, you don't have a lot of crashes there. They're also pretty minor. On the highway itself, there's the left turn lane. So it widens up for the left turn lane. When you get around the corner, you have about 30 foot of width just south of the intersection where you don't have the turn lane. It's on a 25-mile-an-hour. There's no parking on the highway. I put this volume on because I thought it was really interesting that west of the intersection, there's the 8900. Coming in from the side, there's 2300, and south of it, it's 10,300. So, I mean, it shows how busy that particular one. There is no top Smith's history, 5, 10, or 15%. In that 5-year period that we looked at crashes, there was a sum total of 6 crashes. 2 of them were directly related to the curve, fixed object running off the road. The 4 of them that were at the intersection, 3 of them were property damage only. And the one that was a moderate, the injury beat, actually happened to be a rear end crash. So it's never been investigated for signal warrants just because of how the movements are. So, yeah, you weren't very specific about what kind of things you wanted me to specifically look at, what you guys are hearing for complaints here. So talk to me, what's going on?
A lot of it, I think the complaints are the backup on Maine and Illinois to get onto the intersection, people making very poor decisions.
So you're talking
enter the highway.
Are you talking this backup then, Tony, here?
Yep. And then the other is the pedestrians. If you look at your pedestrian traveling north on the east side of Maine,
this
and
side,
crossing Illinois,
right?
No, crossing Illinois, not crossing Maine.
Okay, crossing here.
So they're completely separated from the roadway when that eyebrow was put in.
Okay.
And so somebody that's turning, going northbound Maine to Illinois, there's no stop signs there for that movement.
That for that one.
Correct. And you're not expected to see, you're not looking for a pedestrian right there
Okay.
that's crossing. there's a lack of lighting there, kids wearing dark clothes with a city park or is it CHPRD park just up the road on Main Street.
Okay.
Dorothy, the other one I hear a lot from people when they're calling me to come talk about it is when people are stopped at Illinois and they're trying to make that left turn to go onto Main, and people are coming off of Main, and there's not a whole lot of room to see that vehicle and make a correct decision when you're turning from Illinois onto Main and then trying to get onto 240. Does that make sense?
Okay, so I want to say it's this turn you cannot see before you
When
get
you're
to
coming
this-
off 240, yeah.
Okay, because of this one.
Yep.
So it's actually then this movement seems to be the problem movement in the complaints that you guys are getting.
Mostly.
I think what Karen's saying, what's deceiving is that when you're sitting at East Illinois to turn left onto Main, onto South Main to get onto Main Street,
Right.
when somebody's coming north on Main and turns right, you don't know if they're going to turn right on Illinois or go straight onto Main. And there's just a very short amount of area there that if they're going even the speed limit, it's just a few seconds that they could be all of a sudden, if a car is right in that intersection, they have just a few seconds to react and see the car because of that eyebrow. They can't project ahead and know that somebody's entering the intersection, and somebody's sitting there waiting, can't look south to see a car coming or not.
Right. I couldn't find it. Do you guys have a little bit of the history about when these bulb outs or eyebrows, as you talk about, were built?
It happened probably back in the, I'm guessing early 90s. I remember when I was working in Newberg as a paramedic and on the fire department, before this was done, we had a vehicle that came Highway 240 and came straight onto Illinois Street before this was all done, and then smashed into the back of a semi truck parked in front of Allen Fruit. And we had a multi-casualty incident, about 6 people critically injured from that accident. And it was after that all of this started taking place. So that was like late 80s, early 90s.
Google Earth still shows it as a straight through movement on northbound 240. Late as 2002, looking at the history button. 2003, it's a little fuzzy. 2004, it still has a straight through movement and no eyebrows, just a center painted median.
On this particular one?
Northbound on Main.
Right.
It used to go straight through parallel in the sidewalk, and then there's a painted island to separate it. So it really was an abomination of an intersection.
Yeah, that's why I said I could tell that this kind of came about. And I wasn't sure if some of that came about in order to get the left turn lane, to get that movement off of the highway at least, so that you didn't have somebody stopped in the S curve to make a left turn.
So it was 2010 is when that eyebrow showed up, Neil.
Okay.
Was it really?
Yep.
I was thinking way earlier than that, but I would believe you. You know, you obviously you've got it in front of you.
Dorothy, the other issue we hear quite a bit about is the speeds coming eastbound on 240
Okay.
and coming
And if I remember right, the speed changes like just over here. It's before
right at the
this
bridge.
curve. Yeah.
And there's a garage door that's still in disrepair there, that 112 Main Street.
Okay.
Somebody came around the westbound. Karen, were they intoxicated when they hit that? But they wiped out the garage for 112 Main Street or Illinois. I'm not sure what you call it.
There was, yes, there was a citation issue.
Okay.
But yeah, so speeds, visibility, congestion, pedestrians, there's a slew of issues, and don't know if this one's even on ODOT's radar.
Well, it isn't really, because I think a lot of the problem is the fact that it's the interaction over here of the two city streets that are just off the state system that Yeah, it contributes it with it because of the traffic coming off, but the actual configuration and the problems are really on the city portion. Would love to work with you guys with trying to figure out something to straighten that up. I'm just not sure, what would be the most appropriate fix for it.
Yeah, Dorothy, just to let you know, we do have money starting in July 1 to hire somebody to start to look at what the options may be. We've had people who've come in to look at development on East Illinois and talked about signals, coordinated signals, a roundabout, several different ideas. But yeah, we're going to embark on in the next year on what our options may be. So you will definitely be in that loop.
Right. For signals, I think those are too close. It'd have to operate as one intersection, and then that would be pretty difficult. And I still don't think it would meet warrants per se, because a lot of the right turns would get discounted out. So I'm not sure whether it would even meet a warrant. A roundabout might work. It would help slow traffic down and do some definition, but I don't know if it would fit in there. It might have to be a mini roundabout.
Agreed. There are challenges or opportunities with any
We lost you, Karen.
Doug, can you speak? Is there any plans to add more development up in that North Main area? I know it's developed a lot in the past 10, 15 years, but is there any more land available?
There's not a lot up on Main, Neil. The real issue is going to get to what's going to happen on Chehalem Drive. And so when you go from Highway 240 and you go up north of Columbia, if you go from 240 to Columbia, there's land both on the left and right hand side of that street that will develop to urban densities. When you get north of Columbia, one lot north, you got east and west, and then it'll be on the west hand side. So as that occurs, that more than likely is going to bring more traffic down Chehalem, making the left to get onto 240, and they're coming into downtown. And so volumes should be increasing as they go through this S curve. I know Jay Harris was still here. He was a big proponent of what about a roundabout somehow. And when we kind of kicked it around early on, it's like, well, a full-size roundabout doesn't work because somebody's going to lose a house, and nobody wants to talk to anybody about that. So is there something on a mini roundabout that still allows the freight? Because we do have the freight that comes down Hancock, makes the right, goes up Main Street, and they're going out to Yamhill Carlton. And so we've got to accommodate that as well. So it is a very challenging area.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Dorothy?
And I think the only other thing is like I said, when I looked at the crash data, there were hardly any crashes here, and there was no real particular trend. When you have so few crashes and there isn't even a duplicate crash, you can't see that there's any trend. So, but I will look forward to seeing what you guys come up with and seeing if there's anything that we can do for changing the configuration for your guys' intersection and how it would interact with 240.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Jenna, I know you're just listening in, but do you see any pedestrian opportunities in there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I just wanted to follow up really quickly and just say that I was here listening in and eating. But anyway, in listening for opportunities, the ADA, there are potential ADA projects coming through Newberg touching a lot of these areas in the 24-27 time period. And I am looking at what could, if anything, could be added potentially to leverage those projects. So some things that you guys mentioned today, like potentially switching out the older flashing wigwag system to the newer flashing, rapid flashing beacons, and maybe illumination at this corner that could help now, but not preclude something bigger if you rearrange the corner in the future. So I was listening for those types of things. So I might follow up with you, Tony. Also the sidewalk infill that you mentioned down on 219, just to get a little clarity about what some of the different ideas were. And then I'll get with Dorothy and just see if there are opportunities. So I just wanted you to know I was listening and kind of thinking that was the strategy I was thinking ahead to.
So if I can give you a little bit of kudos, and I apologize, we didn't introduce you, Jenna. Can you introduce yourself, what your role at ODOT is?
Oh, sure. Yeah. My title is Active Transportation Liaison, which is kind of a mouthful. Active transportation is really just the new term for bicycle and pedestrian stuff. And I cover the big region that includes Newberg.
And for the Elliott Road project, ODOT, the signal's being affected by that project, and we're gonna have to update all of the detector crossing data and information of the system in there. And Jenna was able to help find some funds to make that a more pedestrian friendly signal with some of the sort of word I'm looking for here. It's been a long day.
Fair enough.
Video detection and crossing detection software and the packages that go in the hardware. So thank you, Jenna.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so Dorothy's information is there and Karn knows how to get a hold of her. So if you have any other questions, we can email both Jenna and Dorothy. So thank you very much, both of you.
Okay, I will stop sharing. So in case Andrew needs to do it. And now I get to pull a Jenna and just sit here and listen to Andrew talk.
Sure. Dorothy, can you send me your PowerPoint as, it can be as a PDF if you want. We're trying to incorporate all of our materials into Spanish. So if I can get the PowerPoint, when we do the minutes, we can, translate the PowerPoints also. So same with you, Andrew, Kelly, whoever's doing the PowerPoint. If we could do that, that would be awesome.
Sure. I only finished the PowerPoint at like lunch today. So
no worries, no worries. When I do the minutes, if I can attach it and put it in Spanish,
yep,
it's all good.
Okay, not a problem. I'll get it sent to you.
Fantastic. All right, Andrew, you're up to Stock Bypass. If you could introduce your team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Andrew Walker. I'm the project manager for ODOT for phase 2. It will be the portion from the existing northern portion of the bypass up to 99 on the other side of Newberg. Kelly Amador is the project manager for DEA, and Caitlin Dorr is one of the engineers working on the project. And I don't have the ability to share. Oh, now I do. Great.
The magic of Karn.
Yeah, there we go. All right, are you guys looking at the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So yeah, right now we're in the design phase. We're still pretty early in the phase, so I would like to put an asterisk on everything we share, that these are preliminary, subject to change. A lot of the traffic analysis hasn't been completed or refined, and these are layouts that we've developed to like a 30% level, so still pretty early. Another thing to note on this is we don't have construction funding for this project, so everything we're doing, if we don't get construction funding, would be shelved later this year. So we developed the plans to what's called a DAP level, which is around maybe a 60% level, and then we would shelf it until we could identify construction funding for the project. One thing we are doing is buying some of the right of way from people that are willing to sell. We're not doing any condemnation or anything along those lines. But we do have some money to get some property ahead of time so that it doesn't get further developed, to do some purchase for right of way. And some things that we'll focus on in this presentation would be a lot of the intersections and the traffic analysis, and that was kind of the thing we thought you guys would be most interested in. But if you have questions about the broader project or unrelated necessarily to traffic or intersections. We'd be happy to address those as much as we can, or follow up if I don't have a good answer for you. But we have some pretty good heads in this meeting amongst Caitlin and Jenna and Dorothy. So I think we'll be able to answer most questions. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to DEA to kind of walk through their design. I think Kelly will start us off. You there, Kelly? No, no audio. We can't hear you, Kelly. Bummer. Okay, Caitlin, can we hear you?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. Well,
Yay!
so yeah, just tell me when you want to switch your slides, and we'll go through it. So, but yeah, Kelly's the project manager for ODOT. There we go. So do you want to talk about this slide, Caitlin, or do you want me to walk through it until we get to your portion?
You can go ahead and walk through this one and then I can take over.
Sure. So this is the full bypass. You can see what that would look like. So currently we have what we call phase 1, which is just south of Dundee, and it connects with something we call the fish hook. It'd be over here. And then it connects up here to 219. So phase 2 would be this portion right here. And it's going to be similar to phase 1 in that it doesn't build all 4 lanes. It's just going to build 2. So it's a partial build of the bypass. And then there is some planning going on for phase 3, but that's very far into the future. That probably wouldn't even occur in my career. So here's a quick overlay of what phase 2 would look like. So you can kind of see that it's a partial build. It doesn't have all 4 lanes included. It has an intersection or interchange here at 219. Has a realigning of Winooski. Has a connection up here at 99 and another one over here. Anything you want to add to that, Caitlin?
No, I think you covered it.
All right. It has an overpass here at Fernwood. That's one other area. All right, so I will hand it off to you here, Caitlin.
All right, thanks, Andrew. So these next few slides, we're going to walk through the project starting at the west end at OR 219, and then we're going to go all the way up to OR 99 West. So this slide is showing the OR 219 improvements from north of Springbrook to south of Winooski and Wilsonville. So north is to your left, and OR 219 is running from left to right, kind of in the upper part of the page there. Springbrook is on the left side, and then Winooski is kind of down in the middle right there. So the improvements on OR 219 include widening and an additional southbound through lane. There's also going to be sidewalk on both sides of OR 219 and some pedestrian enhancements, improvements like curb ramps, islands to shorten the crossing distances at intersections, things like that. So then there's these 3 callouts: the north intersection, south intersection, and Winooski Road, Wilsonville Road intersection. So the north intersection is going to show the entrance ramp from OR 219 to the westbound bypass towards Dundee. That's kind of on the left side there. And then the exit loop ramp that is right next to that one is going to be cars traveling westbound on the bypass, and they will exit onto OR 219 at the loop ramp right next to that at the north intersection. The south intersection also has an exit loop ramp and an entrance ramp, just for the opposite direction. So the exit loop ramp is going to be for cars traveling eastbound on the bypass and exiting to OR 219. And then the entrance ramp is going to get on to the eastbound bypass from OR 219. And then you can also see that the Winooski and Wilsonville Road intersection, Winooski is realigned to line up with the new Wilsonville Road intersection. And the next few slides, we have some zoomed in views of each of those so we can look at that in a little bit more detail. So this next one is that north intersection. Again, north is going to be up in this picture. OR 219 is going to be running from top to bottom on the screen. And then the entrance ramp is on the left-hand side on the north portion there. And then the exit loop ramp is going to be directly south of that. So like I was saying on the last slide, there's going to be sidewalk going down OR 219 that's shown in the red solid lines on this picture. And it's kind of hard to see, but that's on the outside. And then there's those pedestrian islands and crosswalks that are shown on all three legs of the intersection there on the north and south going across OR 219, and then on the left-hand side of the page there going across the exit loop ramp and the entrance ramp to and from the bypass. So there is going to be, currently, we're showing 2 left turn lanes from OR 219 northbound onto the bypass, and then a right turn lane southbound on OR 219 onto the bypass going westbound to Dundee. And then the exit loop ramp is going to have a left turn lane and 2 right turn lanes to continue southbound on OR 219. And I think we can move on to the next slide. Thanks. So the south intersection, the orange line that's shown on the left-hand side of the screen is the existing sound wall that exists today. Again, north is going to be up, and OR 219 is going to be going from top to bottom of the page. And then on the right-hand side, they're switched. The exit loop ramp is going to be on the north, and then the entrance ramp is going to be directly south of that. So the entrance ramp is getting onto the bypass going eastbound towards OR 99 West. And the exit loop ramp is if you are already on the bypass going eastbound and exiting to get off at OR 219. And similarly, there's a designated left turn lane going southbound on OR 219 to get onto the bypass. A right turn lane is shown on OR 219 northbound. And then there's a couple turn lanes to get off onto OR 219 from here as well. All right, next slide. So this image is showing the Winooski Road and Wilsonville Road intersection, and north is still up in this picture, and OR 219 is still going from top to bottom. Winooski, the realigned Winooski, is on the left-hand side, and then the Wilsonville Road connection is shown on the right-hand side. So this intersection is going to be signalized, which is a little bit different than what's out there today. And Wilsonville, we are showing a couple of changes to that intersection leg with separating out the right through and left. Again, like Andrew mentioned, this is all pending traffic analysis. So this intersection layout may change. That's what we have shown.
Caitlin, this is Dorothy. You also need to say that you cannot guarantee a signal will go in. It will be evaluated for a signal.
Yes, thank you, Dorothy. So I think it's everything I had on that side. So we can move on to the next one.
This is Roger. I have a question.
Sure.
Wasn't there some discussion about this intersection being a roundabout at some point?
There was, and for a few different reasons, we had to eliminate that idea. One was the footprint, and another one was freight. One key restriction on this project is staying within the EIS's accepted footprint and having the roundabouts incorporated in that. We weren't able to find a way to keep those within the footprint of the EIS, which would kick us out of what was already accepted.
And so this intersection will be all at grade then? No.
This one would be at grade, correct? Yeah, any other questions so far? Feel free to ask questions throughout. We'll have a Q&A time afterwards as well to dive in deep to any particular questions that require a little more discussion.
So Andrew, this is Doug.
Yep.
With the mill site redeveloping, so it's going through demolition right now. And we're anticipating 1.5 million square feet of new industrial space, plus or minus. This Winooski Road realignment and signal is going to be critical to making that redevelopment work in the future.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think even today this particular intersection is needed. The connection right now is not ideal. So if and when we can get that money, this is ODOT's priority, is to construct this section of the bypass.
Yeah, what I don't want to run into a situation is we start to redevelop the mill site with the existing Winooski, and all of a sudden ODOT says, oh, now you need to put a signal in Winooski and 219, which is a throwaway. It will kill development.
If there was a signal here, I think it would be a permanent solution.
No, what I'm talking
about in this development should be a throwaway.
No, I'm talking about the existing Winooski intersection with
gotcha.
219. As development occurs up there and volumes go back to what they were or greater prior to the mill closure in 2016, what I want to avoid at all costs is it comes back and somebody says, oh, because of traffic volumes, now you need to signalize the existing Winooski, which is going to end up being a throwaway, and which is a huge expense, which will end up then severely impeding redevelopment of the mill site. That's why this realignment piece is really critical.
Yeah, and I will say, as far as the bypass goes, this portion of the bypass is ODOT's #1 priority, and we are currently seeking funding for it. So this is a priority, but I really appreciate that, and I'll make sure that gets passed along as well to the folks that set those priorities.
Hi, this is Jeff Greider. I just had a quick question about this particular intersection concept, and I'm curious why there's not a left-hand turn going north on 219 onto the new Winooski.
I'll let Caitlin address that one.
So like I mentioned earlier, I think the layout of this intersection is still subject to change. We're still waiting traffic analysis results. So it's possible that there could be enough volumes.
This is Dorothy. I think there will be a left turn lane. I just don't think they have the arrow on it.
That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, because again, if we get back to on the redevelopment of the mill site, our shortest route to get to I-5 is down 219 to McKay out to the Donald Aurora and the new interchange occurring there. And so if that truly materializes, you're going to need a northbound left turn lane to get onto Winooski.
It looks like they have one there. It just doesn't have the arrow on it. I think
I'm
that's-
seeing that now. I appreciate you pointing that out. Thank you.
Yeah, any other specific questions on this one or any of the other intersection we've presented thus far?
This is Roger again. Is there going to be a discussion about the pedestrian access and bike paths and how this all flows through this area? The connections, what's being proposed by CPRD and
Yeah, so do you mean specifically along 219 or the whole bypass?
in general, the whole bypass, but specifically kind of through this intersection, how it ties in with what CPRD is proposing to do to tie in the riverfront and back onto phase 1 area.
Yeah, I might let Caitlin talk a little bit about this specific area. That's kind of a broad question. Maybe we'll save that one for the end. But as far as this intersection goes, bike and ped is accommodated throughout the entire 219 section. Do you have anything you would add to that, Caitlin?
No, I mean, we are showing sidewalks on both sides of OR 219, like Andrew just said. So the sidewalk limits do stop right on the south side of this intersection. So
they don't tie into the plan of the CPRD's Parkway plan.
Roger, I might jump in on this real quickly. I think my understanding, I was just looking at this actually recently because they applied for an Oregon Community Paths grant to fund some of the path. And the alignment that I've seen would be the Springbrook intersection would be the key one, not this one. So it would be north of here where the Springbrook separated path comes in on the south side of Springbrook and 219. There's a wider multi-use path. So the cyclists would go in there, continue west, and then come through the Industrial Parkway, getting funding hopefully to do over Hess Creek and then tie into Winooski. North of this intersection, there's already a wide ramp that ODOT built for that alignment. So I think that while we will also accommodate bikes and peds here, like in the typical standards that we do, the real connectivity opportunity, I think, to ensure that we have like wide ramps where it's a path and not a sidewalk, is up at Springbrook. Does that sound right to you?
Great, thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other questions on this intersection or any of the previous ones? Okay, move on to the next one.
all right, this next slide is moving east along the bypass, and this particular image is showing the Fernwood portion of the project. So the bypass is shown to be going over Fernwood at this location. North is up, and Fernwood and Brusher are shown in the aerial imagery. Fernwood is going from left to right, and then Brusher's over there in the left top corner. The bypass, the bridge is shown in a blue rectangle in this image to be going over Fernwood, like I said. There is some line work shown on there for the existing sidewalk on the north side of Fernwood and the golf cart path on the south side. Those physical locations aren't changing. We are anticipating that there might be some damage to those facilities during the construction of the bridge. So that's why we're showing that work there. And the I believe it's called the Chehalem Parks and Rec Trail that kind of goes alongside the golf course is shown in the aerial image on the left-hand side of the image. This connection is going to be maintained with the golf cart path, but it does need to be realigned. So that's shown in the red lines off to the right of the bypass, paralleling the bypass. And that's due to construction of the bypass. So we're just showing a realignment reconnection through there.
Yeah, I think this ties into that previous question as well. This is part of our effort in maintaining that connectivity of the greater Chehalis Parks and Rec path system. Any questions on this particular bridge or the connection here?
This is Roger. Gonna have a question. The intersection then of Fernwood and Burchard, pedestrian access there through PCC and stuff. There's not really any defined pedestrian crossings or anything of Fernwood.
Yeah, we would be avoiding that intersection, so we wouldn't be making any modifications to the existing at this point.
But the traffic does come down Burchard and goes across to tie into the CPRD pathway. And now you've kind of moved all that down to the, down to the right. So I just wonder how that all ties in.
So the path, you can't see it because it goes off the map, but this will tie into the existing pathway. So you would come down around like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically you would go under this bridge here.
Okay.
So there is a slight realignment, and right now this is the golf course, the golf cart track. So you would utilize that, and then you'd come down this path and connect back in down here off the map a little ways.
Okay.
So we would maintain that connectivity. Yep.
We're not going to get in trouble with the golfers, are we? You're not going to put us on the same path as the golfers, because I've done that before and it was a problem.
I don't see an issue with that, but I definitely can raise that. I can raise that concern.
I think
Andrew, you need to go golfing and understand what that conflict is.
I haven't been golfing on this particular one, but I know quite a few people that have, and I get a lot of comments on what the new holes should look like and carts and all sorts of things. So those are definitely comments that I want to hear, though. If there's specific concerns or ideas on what this realignment could look like, what could make it better, how we could accommodate bikes and golf carts and pedestrians better, I'd love to hear those comments. My email and phone number will be at the end of the presentation. So if there's any questions that come up to you when you're lying awake at night and you really want to tell me about it, I'd actually like to hear it.
I might dream about golf carts trying to run over cyclists tonight. So
okay, yeah.
So anyway, but we should talk a little bit more about that, because that's not typical. So just kind of from a cultural standpoint, either we should make it wider. I'm guessing Roger's thinking, I can feel him thinking along the same lines, or have some markings or something through there to kind of or signage. I know that's getting down the road, but I just want to make sure that we don't make some assumptions here that end up causing too much user conflict.
This area is golf carts have access to this whole area. So, there's quite a few neighborhoods up to the upper, left-hand area there. The cart path or golf carts come down through to get to the golf course and around. So it's heavily used.
Yeah. And as far as making the path wider, I think that's an option. There's a decent amount of space there. So that's something we could look at what exactly that would entail. And like I said, this is early. We don't
it's
have
early.
The lines for what those are at this point.
Which is why it's great, Roger, to get this initial input from you. But I do think we definitely want to, Andrew, I would suggest, also just kind of, and I'm sure you have this plan, but connecting with Chehalis Parks and Rec and make sure that, if they have that anywhere else in the city, for example, where those user groups come together, that we're being consistent with the way they've handled that type of thing.
Yeah, we've been in contact with Shahale and Parks and Rec a decent amount on what exactly the expectations are for these areas. There's a couple areas that we're crossing over that we're going to maintain that connectivity. I think we show one of the other areas on the next slide. But before we go there, are there any other questions or comments on this one?
I understand there's a visual image of what this is going to look like. Do you have one?
I'm not aware of any like 3D renderings or anything of that nature.
Okay, I thought Kelly had mentioned it at a Parkway Committee meeting a few times ago.
Kelly, do you know anything? You can give me a head nod since we can't hear you. Yes or no on a 3D rendering? No. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of one, but I think as the design develops, sometimes we do develop 3D renderings just to give people an idea exactly what that'll look like. As far as exactly what the bridge type would be at this point, I don't think that's decided. So it would be hard to get a rendering to give you kind of a feel aesthetically for what that would look like. There's a few different options that are still on the table.
Is there any option to kind of mark that area so people have an idea of what's being proposed, or this is the area that
you mean by like marking out there on the ground right now, or marking on like a Google Earth image, like kind of like this?
On the ground now.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do a site visit out there and show you.
So I've seen some white flags along there. I've seen some white flags along. It looks like there's maybe a proposed areas where the bridge supports might be or something.
I think they might be doing some wetland marking or tie downs. Yeah, I think that's what the white flags you're looking at are. So
right along
we recently
Fernwood?
sent out our surveyors to map the wetlands in the area.
These are right along Fernwood.
Yeah, they could. Well, what do you mean by right along? You mean in like this area over here?
Just across the street.
In here?
You know, like
Yeah, there
where
could
that-
be wetlands in there.
Okay, but kind of where that blue X is.
Yeah, I don't know why they would be marking the bends at this point, or the bridge ends. I would be surprised if that were true. Yeah, any other questions or comments on this one? Yeah, and just to add on to that bridge ends, so this will be elevated above. So as far as the bridge itself, the bridge structure ends here, but there will be fill along here. So marking exactly what that would look like.
So Andrew, this is Doug. What happened to the original concept of the bypass going underneath Fernwood, and Fernwood being the bridge, which would have potentially had less noise impact on the residential areas?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the idea was modified during the value engineering analysis of this. So the noise impacts of this are actually anticipated to be the same or lower. But one major reason why we eliminated that was it required you to raise Fernwood, and that there's a housing development over here, subdivision, that would be pretty severely impacted by that. So we had concerns about settlement damaging those houses, as well as the noise that would be created by raising the traffic up to their window level. So we actually believe that the noise impacts will be lower from this, as well as traffic impacts. You basically get to maintain Fernwood in its current usage. It also minimized the impacts to the pathway. So if we created a bridge with the bypass going under, you wouldn't have a bridge for this path to go through. So you'd have to do a significant amount of repathing and rerouting the existing path. So this was also to minimize that. It's a driving factor in this particular decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it is what you guys are designing. It's just a lot of people were aware of the bypass going underneath Fernwood. But if you're gonna look, the concept is looking at a bridge, of course, you're gonna do all the decorative railing for safety purposes and so forth, right? Because all of our neighbors out in the greens will want to look at a pretty bridge, not at a ugly bridge with chain link fence.
So chain link fence is unlikely. But as far as aesthetically, that's something we have to hash out as the design develops. It's going to depend on the type of bridge, right? What those would look like. We're doing that noise analysis still. And so it's possible that we would have sound walls along that, and doing a decorative print on the sound walls is, I think, is aesthetically pleasing, but you know, to each their own. So,
Yeah, it's just,
yeah.
I've already heard, from neighbors from the Greens, just concerned about the noise. The ambient noise level is going to change significantly with the bypass and what's going to do with their quality of life.
Yep. Yeah. Regardless of whether you go under or over, there will be more noise. And so that's part of what we address in this noise study, analyzing how much noise will be created and how to go about mitigating that. Yeah. Any other questions or comments on this particular area? Okay, we'll keep moving along.
All right, so this next area is at the very east end of the project at OR 99 West. North is going to be up in this picture, and OR 99 West is labeled there going from left to right in the image. And the bypass is also called out south of that. So the bypass kind of splits off and turns into an eastbound on-ramp to OR 99 West, kind of going from the left bottom part of the page across and up. There's also a few different intersections shown on this page. So starting on the left-hand side, that new intersection is going to be the connection from OR 99 West to the westbound movement on the bypass. And then going to the next intersection on the right, that is showing a realignment of Corral Creek that goes down underneath the bypass, kind of in the middle there where that blue color is, and then ties back in. And then Veritas Lane is also realigned to tie back into the new location of Corral Creek. There's also going to be some reconfiguring of bike movements along here. So bikes will still use the shoulder on OR 99 West like they do today to the west of Corral Creek. Once they get to Corral Creek, they will turn onto Corral Creek and follow it up to Veritas Lane. And then they will continue on Veritas Lane up and reconnect back into the shoulder on eastbound OR 99 West. And the next few slides that we have, again, show some zoomed in views of these intersections. So we'll look at that in a little bit more detail again. Actually, Andrew, can you go back to that one really quick? So also just to mention, Benjamin Road is shown in the aerial image on the left-hand side, north of OR 99 West here. Left turns from eastbound OR 99 West will still be possible in this configuration, but left turns out of Benjamin to go eastbound on OR 99 West will not be possible with the new intersection. We can move on to the next slide if no one has questions. So this is a zoomed in view of that first intersection. So north is up and OR 99 West is going from left to right across the screen. This intersection is showing OR 99 West tying in with the westbound movement onto the bypass. There's 2 left turn lanes shown on OR 99 West to turn onto the bypass on the right-hand side there. The through movements on OR 99 West going westbound into Newberg will be free flow unless there's a pedestrian movement that stops that to cross across OR 99 West that's shown on the left-hand side with the crosswalk. Yep. And then that's a right turn lane off of OR 99 West eastbound to get onto the bypass towards Dundee. There are some pedestrian improvements shown here. So curb ramps, there's crosswalks, striped crosswalks. Again, there's a pedestrian refuge island kind of in the middle of the screen there to shorten the crossing distances. And in the top part of the page, those red lines that are shown on top of those 2 accesses, those accesses will be maintained. They're just going to be regraded due to some other work that's happening on OR 99 West. The movements out of those accesses will be limited with this new intersection configuration, only allowing for right in, right out from OR 99 West.
So how would those folks get home if they were coming, if they wanted to go shopping at Fred Meyer's or downtown Newberg? They have to go down to the bypass and come out? No, doesn't work. How would they get back home from Newberg?
Well, so the access on the right-hand side, I believe, is a City of Newberg access. The access that's on the left-hand side is a bed and breakfast that I don't think is open any longer. But I think there's some other connections to the north of this area where they can access their property, I believe.
Yeah, the one on the right-hand side, it leads to Otis Springs, which is owned by the city.
And the one to the left goes to the McClure's property where they have the house. They used to have a bed and breakfast there, but they also sell their hazelnuts. And so they have people who pull off the road and buy hazelnuts from their hazelnut stand.
Yeah, any other questions on that? Did that help answer that question?
This isn't related at all to the intersection or access to the A to Z wineries?
This is not part of the A to Z winery that's on the north side of the highway there. A to Z is up here.
We'll be looking at that in the next slide, I believe.
Yeah.
So this is Jeff again, just to be clear, if this were to be zoomed out a little bit, Benjamin is off to the top left of the photo, is that correct?
So we're looking right here.
Okay.
Yes.
And here's A to Z over here.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah. Next one we'll look at is this guy right here.
So this slide is showing the realignment of Corral Creek Road. So north is still up and OR 99 West is still going from left to right in the image shown The existing Corral Creek connection is shown in the middle right-hand side of the page there. And the new intersection is shown to be realigned further west down OR 99 west. So something to note, what I was talking about earlier, the new bike route. This is where bikes, you can kind of see the bike symbols shown there, would turn off of OR 99 west onto Corral Creek. They would go down to Veritas Lane and continue up, and we'll see a little bit more of that on the next slide as well. And then, so Corral Creek becomes right in, right out only. And then A to Z, their access is shown directly across from the existing Corral Creek intersection there in the top right corner. Those arrows are showing how the traffic movements are going to be in this configuration. So the movements from OR 99 West are still the same. You can turn left from going eastbound on OR 99 West into A to Z. And then going westbound on OR 99 West, you can still turn right into their property. Coming out of A to Z, you will only be able to turn right to go westbound onto OR 99 West. You won't be able to turn left at that location anymore, but you can go up to the new intersection that we just showed on the last slide and complete a U-turn to go back eastbound towards Portland on OR 99 West.
That is also another one that we'll have to get approval for. It's not an automatic.
Yeah, thank you, Dorothy.
I was going to say, when you've got a double left turn lane and you have a U-turn on the interior lane, I know in Region 1, when I've dealt with that before, there's like, oh, no.
So there's a few, like we said, this is really preliminary concepts, kind of what we're looking at. None of the traffic has been run for this yet in any definitive way. And there's still a couple other layouts we're considering to solve some of these movement issues.
So are we taking into consideration that a fair amount of traffic that could be making that left-hand turn will be stretch limos, people doing wine tours? And will there be enough room for a limousine to make a U-turn at that intersection to head eastbound on 99W after leaving the AMZ winery?
The short answer is yes. And vehicles even longer than that. So
okay, great.
Trucks and long freight vehicles. Yeah, we're looking at what type of solutions we have for those vehicles.
Yeah, I think part of the concern for the city, if those U-turns don't work, as you're pushing more of the traffic down towards Providence and Crestview Drive. And, you know, where do they turn around down there, and what kind of negative impacts does that have?
Yeah, figuring out how to get vehicles turned around on here safely is definitely one of the design challenges we're working through. And that we identified that particular issue as well, though, but I appreciate the comment. Yeah, that's.
I have a question. How do you access Plow Creek Road if you're going westbound on 99? Coming down the hill?
You won't be able to access it at that location anymore.
Where would the access be?
You'd have to turn around and head east.
Yeah.
To get to it.
So you'd have to do the same U-turn thing you were just talking about?
Yep.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments on this area, or any of the previous, or as a whole?
One more, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
The Herbert Hoover historical marker that's on 99, just going northbound on 99, that's going to be maintained, replaced. Historical Society has been reaching out to me. The French Prairie sign down on 219 on the south side of the Willamette disappeared. And I've been asked questions about, oh, when all of this happens, is that historical marker or sign, it's really a historical sign, is that going to be maintained, replaced, upgraded? I don't know the answer.
No, that's a good question. I'm not aware of that issue. Dorothy, do you have an answer for that, or is that something we should follow up on?
It's something that should probably be called out in the sign design as to, first of all, it probably depends on who actually owns the sign as to whether they're responsible. A lot of times those signs, it has to, whoever puts it in has to pay for it to be replaced at the end of its useful life or it goes away. So like I said, there'd have to be some research done as to whose sign it actually is, whether it's ours or somebody else's.
Well, if you could check into that, it would be appreciated because I'll have to respond back to the Historical Society at some point.
Yeah, do you mind shooting me an email? Like I said, my email's at the end. That way I have your contact information and we can follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah, any other questions or comments? These are good.
What would be an estimated time to build once it was started?
If funding dropped from the sky today,
Yeah, well, say everything was green funding wise, how long do you think actually once ground was broken to completion that would take?
so we still would have maybe 2 years left of design, and then construction would be multiple years.
Does it sound like there's a pretty fair chance that this could possibly be funded this cycle?
Not in this STIP. It's not funded in this current funding cycle. I don't think it's projected for the next one either. We are seeking funding for what we're calling a partial build of this. Like I was saying earlier, the 219 portion, that's in the $30 million range. We are looking for funding for that. It's not approved yet, so but it would include part of this new transportation stimulus that's coming out. That's part of our funding strategy. The governor has included part of this in her budget. That's not approved yet, but it's a priority for them. So there's a couple funding sources we're exploring, but as far as the full second phase bypass, I don't know of any funding sources yet.
Thank you.
That's one to get a hold of Representative DeFazio and push just like the Parkway Committee is. The other thing, we were talking about signage. Let's don't make the mistake we made with phase one and forget in the signage that somehow you got to direct people to downtown Newberg. It's not all about the bypass, because that came up in phase one at Springbrook, because there was nothing that said downtown Newberg. It's all about here's Springbrook. And so that's something Karin and I will be watching, because I know I've been beat up on it for years now.
Well, I don't want you to get beat up. So yeah, we can definitely keep an eye on that and see what we can do as far as that goes. Any other questions, comments on the concept thus far? Okay.
All right. And this is the last slide that we have, the project. And this is going to be all the way on the east end of the intersections that we were looking at in that expanded view. So this is showing Veritas Lane. And again, north is still up and OR 99 West is still going from left to right in the aerial imagery. The existing Corral Creek and Veritas Lane connection is shown in the aerial imagery in the bottom left corner of the page, and Chehalem Winery is shown in the bottom middle of the page. So again, going back to the bike route, this is where bikes would turn onto Veritas Lane, and then they would continue up Veritas Lane, and the red squiggly lines that are shown there at the end is the bike path all the way up to OR 99 West, going eastbound, and then that would drop them back onto the shoulder to continue on the same path. Veritas Lane would dead end at the end of those, where those black lines meet the red lines at Chehalem Winery. So anyone coming out of Chehalem Winery would need to go back down Veritas Lane and go either north or south on Corral Creek to get to where they were trying to go. And in the middle of the screen is showing the connection of the bypass to OR 99 West, where it becomes the eastbound on ramp, going from left to right there. I think that's everything I had. Does anyone have any questions about this one?
So this is Doug again. So the project doesn't go up far enough to get to Quarry Road at 219 in the bridge. It was going to go across 99. But that's not part of this.
Is Quarry Road up to on the right-hand side of the page in this view?
Yeah, if you kept going northbound on 99, just as you get up towards the end of the slide or the picture, Quarry Road comes in there and ties back in. I just know in the FEIS it had a new bridge of Quarry Road connecting back into 99. But I'm just clarification, the project doesn't go that far to the northeast.
This phase does not, but I'm aware of that bridge you're talking about. And in the final build of this, that would be included, but our phase doesn't include that.
Okay.
Does this connection onto 99 provide adequate flow for trucks and things? And I think that was that a concern or something about this bypass, that there would be traffic for trucks or something to make it easy to get up that hill?
Yeah, this will significantly improve truck traffic. This grade will be far more gradual and easy for trucks to traverse, opposed to the current Rex Hill grade that's pretty steep, that folks come screaming down and crawling up.
Has ODOT expended the $10.5 million for the right-of-way acquisition?
We are currently using some of the remainder from phase one. So as we wrap up that portion of the project, we're moving funds over as they become available, and as property for the bypass becomes available as well. So we are working on expanding that. We have not gone past the 10.5 at this point.
I guess the follow-up question is, I'm sure you have on your list the conversations with CPRD and Providence about how that all fits in with the two holes of the golf course and expansion of the golf course and the issues with the county and an EFU land and all of that.
Yeah, that particular topic is quite hot on my list. We have surveyors out there right now working on what ODOT would purchase. My understanding is that CPRD and Providence have an agreement or a contract that would be executed once ODOT purchases the property that we'll need for the bypass. The exchange and the development of those additional holes is not within ODOT's purview. So that's the agreement that they have. The memorandum of understanding is that Providence will develop that portion of the golf course.
Another question is sound walls. So as the bypass gets close to Providence Drive, They're up at that'd be the northwest corner of the golf course. That being evaluated as part of all your noise evaluation as well, because we've got an existing retirement community there. We've got another phase of that that's going in. In the future, there'll be some apartments as part of that project. And so likely is that noise attenuation issues are going to come up.
Yeah, this entire stretch is being studied. So any developments near the bypass they're gonna have modeling for those to model what kind of noise those particular areas will experience. There's a number of areas that we anticipate sound loss.
And Tony, thanks for letting me ask a lot of questions.
You've been chewing on this for a while, Doug. It's good to hear what your questions are.
Contemplative.
Andrew, could you go back to the full overarching so we can ask any final questions of the whole
Yeah.
Megillah?
Absolutely, the whole Megillah. Here you go, guys. What do you got for questions?
I was having trouble visualizing how much of that golf course is going to get easier. Like the number 2 hole gets shortened up a little bit.
I don't know if you know Don Clemens, but he's part of CPRD, and we've talked about that, and we think it'll actually improve. I forget which hole this is. Like anyway.
2.
Is it 2? Yeah. And right now it's a par 3. Is that right?
4.
Is it a 4? I think they're planning on making it a 5. Anyway, my understanding is it's going to be better.
So we're going to play over the bypass. That's what I'm hearing.
No, it's gonna take a turn, but yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, first thing I'll do when this thing gets built and that golf course is adjusted, I'll do some rounds out there.
Well, Andrew, call me. We'll go out and play.
All right.
We can do a before round and an after round.
There you go. We can debate on which version was better.
All right. Any final questions for Andrew? I know the time is getting long, and I appreciate everybody staying on so late tonight.
So I just have a question. What's the plan for keeping the public informed on the design?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple things that we do to do that. One is we have a newsletter that comes out, and there's a website for this project that you can sign up for that newsletter. The other one is as we get closer and know more about the project and the design is more definitive, we'll send out mailers. We'll do things like town halls and that kind of stuff to keep people involved. We're just pretty early right now. Even this presentation is kind of early, and that's why most of our slides are prefaced with, this is a concept. We haven't vetted these things down to the ground.
Thank you for the presentation. It's good to see what's being thought about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting project. It's a privilege to be able to be a part of it.
So Andrew, what lessons learned is ODOT applying from the phase 1 bypass to this bypass? Specifically, the jug handle in Dundee raises a lot of issues and questions, and I see similar types of tight radiuses.
Yeah, I wish Kelly had audio because she could tell you more, because she was the project manager for phase 1. I will say that we are incorporating a lot of those ideas. I wasn't involved in phase 1, so as far as those lessons learned, I don't feel the pain of them. So the folks that are helping design this are avoiding those same situations on my behalf, if that answers the question.
Perfect. All right. Well, seeing no other questions, check the chat, make sure that's empty. All right, that's empty. Well, thank you guys from ODOT. Dorothy, if you're still here, Jenna, and the bypass team, Andrew and DEA. Thank you guys all very much for the presentation tonight. Very informative. It's what I know it's what I was hoping for tonight when Cara and I talked about setting this up. So thank you very much.
All right. One thing that I forgot to mention, just because of the question on the paths came up, and we didn't have a specific slide on it, but there's a path here on the north side of the golf course, and we're planning on a bridge to maintain that access.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's, I think we're gonna look at our agenda here really quick. And Karin, if we could, is there any pressing issue in the engineering update, or we don't have a police today. So is there anything pressing on engineering you want to share with the committee?
I don't think so. I don't think we have any new projects to tell you guys about. Elliott Road's still moving forward. We're still looking at paving on, this might be an update, North Street, Franklin Street, Willamette, and 6th Street as part of the transportation utility fee money. Safe Routes to School will be moving forward. We do have a signed grant for that. So we're putting together the PE and that type of thing to get that under construction. And I'm trying to think of anything else for this group at this point. The budget committee meetings start next week, so we'll know more about where we're going to land budget-wise. Oh, the next sidewalk project will probably be installing sidewalks around Scott Levitt Park. Since there are no sidewalks there, again, kind of building on Memorial Park, building sidewalks around park seems to make sense to get people there and around. So that'll be the next city project on that piece. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else project-wise, unless anybody has any questions.
Anything? Okay. Thank you. We do have some old business, and with the committee's approval, I think we'll continue those as old business to our July meeting. And then we will do a quick around the horn for commissioner comments, and I'll start with Roger.
Thank you. Again, appreciate the presentations from ODOT. I think it's good to keep informed on what's being planned in our area, and I appreciate both presentations.
Well, Doug, you're here. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? We're becoming an expert mouth reader, so I think you said nope, nothing to add.
I said, no, I've said enough tonight. I need to be quiet. Otherwise, Jenna will get mad at me as we work on another bike project someplace. You go, Doug never shuts up.
Mark.
No, I don't have anything in general. I will point out, Karn, the pothole is still on College and Mountain View that I pointed out 2 meetings ago.
And I did point that out to maintenance, and actually it's ODOT. And actually it's actually a they said it's actually a center line marker. But that has sunk. So that's what maintenance claimed when they went out there to take a look at it. So yeah, it's actually technically in ODOT's Oregon 219. So I don't know, Andrew, Dorothy, can you help that pothole thing happen?
If you follow up with me on an email and show me where it's at, I can try and chase down a solution for you.
All right, thank you.
Fantastic. You're getting pulled into everything you didn't think you were going to get into tonight, Andrew.
Yeah, well, glad to be of service to the public.
Bob?
Yeah, I really appreciate, hearing about the bypass. We live in the Greens, and I play golf at that golf course. So it's nice to know what you're going to do. So thank you.
Leslie.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I just want to thank the ODOT team for presenting to us tonight. This was a lot of really good information to just help think about the future and what transportation in and around Newberg will look like. I also commute primarily by bicycle in town every day, so I really appreciate all the attention on bike and ped infrastructure. I think that's really critical, so thank you.
Casper.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear kind of what the future is going to look like. And like to reiterate what Leslie said about bike and ped infrastructure, because I also bike around a lot, so it's really great to hear you guys looking at that.
And I'm hoping this is making your career decision up that you want to go to college and become a civil engineer, right, Caitlin?
We need active transportation bike ped oriented ones specifically, Casper. So I'm just going to make a plug right now for that.
Perfect.
I think bridge engineers are pretty sexy, but that's just my opinion.
Everybody goes to college thinking they're going to be a bridge engineer, but bike ped, that can be the way to go. Jeff Greider.
I don't know if this makes me more or less crazy, but I at one time wanted to be an electrical engineer. So I just wanted to say thanks to the folks from ODOT for, all your work on this project, but also coming and presenting to us. It really makes a difference when we're able to understand the larger picture of what's going on and what's going to happen in the future. And then as far as the comments in general about our traffic safety commission and meeting, I did miss the last meeting. I apologize. And I'm really excited about the things that we're working on right now just in Newberg. I think we're making a difference, and I appreciate you all. Thanks.
And last but not least, Neil.
Thanks. I just like to echo what everybody else said. The ODOT presentations and especially the discussions on those 3 different intersections in town. They're ongoing issues that we've dealt with before and will continue to deal with. And, as I've said before, it all comes down to infrastructure, small town having to deal with bigger vehicles and bigger traffic issues that weren't foreseen 50, 60, 70 years ago when everything was initially designed. One item I was hope we were going to talk about was the Friendsview University Village decision. I know that Karn put out an email on the 11th about the decision that was made. I agree that it's getting late tonight, and maybe we can talk about that next month's our next meeting. But something also I'd like to put out there that we need to improve upon is the communication. The final decision was made on the 5th. We were emailed on the 11th for a deadline on the 19th. And I just don't open my city Newberg email that often. So I didn't get notified about it until just a couple of days ago, well after the deadline, to be able to, file an appeal or do anything like that. And I know Ian McDonough, I talked to him, he was on the CC list and he never got notified either of the decision, and he probably would have filed an appeal. So I don't have an answer, and I understand the legislative process with planning commission and the 120-day rule and everything like that. But I think we need to hopefully try to find some way to improve the communication chain, especially in the COVID days. So that's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
All right. So you heard it a few times, but thank you. If there's any closing comments from the ODOT folks or Karin.
Yeah, I just appreciate you guys having us, and it's always a pleasure to talk about the projects. A lot of cool stuff. I personally appreciate the public involvement. I think the projects turn out better when we get this input. I got quite a few good comments that I think I'll be following up on and making sure our design team is aware of these considerations. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to me as these issues come up. Always happy to talk about the project. But thank you for allowing us to be here and sharing our developments.
This is Dorothy, Karen, and Doug. I mean, yeah, we carry on these conversations. Get a hold of me as we're working through these processes, and we'll see what we can do about maybe coming up with some solutions.
Mm-hmm. And I want to make a quick final plug to the bike ped people in the house, self-proclaimed Roger, Leslie, Casper, and maybe others who didn't, throw it out there. But the way that these designs work, as you can tell, it's a long haul, like we're talking about stuff that's pretty far out. But we know how cars move around a lot more than we know desire lines, we call them, or the actual like desires of the bike ped community. So I really hope, Roger, to your question about how we're going to stay engaged and when will they, that you all stay engaged and ask your other biking and walking friends to also engage when the design develops further, so that we can be sure to get that stuff right, because that's the part where we really do rely on local insight more, just because the behavior is harder to know, right? So I just really want to make that plug and encourage you to stay the course, even though it's a long game, because it really does pay off. So I will be looking at all of you to help out when that time comes.
I think we have some willing and happy participants in that, Jenna.
Good, great. I'm gonna come go for a ride with you and you can show me some stuff.
All right, well, with that, we will call this meeting a wrap. Our next meeting is scheduled for July 12th. Probably still gonna be on Zoom, right, Karin?
Probably. I'm not, as long as we're still required to social distance. I don't know that we have a room big enough to hold this many people. So, so as long as that is still the name of the game, yes, we will still be on Zoom.
Fantastic. All right, well, that's it for the night. Thank you all for indulging us in a 2-hour plus meeting. Have a great night and a great weekend. Enjoy the 70-degree weather.
Great.
Well.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.